So today, here on the Weird Couch, we are talking about something a little bit more serious than what we're normally used to talking about, and that is it's education. We're all parents, and we've all dealt with the schools and the changing environment and system and the way that people are teaching, the types of teachers that are out there now. Is the education system good, or is the education system bad? I would have to lean on the side of the education system sucks donkey balls. I don't know if you agree with me or disagree.
I'm not sure where donkey balls exist.
Basically, it is the worst of the worst of the worst. Like, it's horrible. It's seriously horrible. So, what do you think, Joe? Do you agree or disagree?
I'm not going to say it's the worst of the worst, but it does suck. I'm not going to say donkey balls. I'll say monkey balls. Sweat, hot, monkey balls, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Chris? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I would go as far as saying donkey balls, but definitely leave some to be desired. That's for sure.
Okay. Let me clarify for the viewers out there who might not understand why I said donkey balls. Yes, you've got kids that are traversing mountains or crossing rivers and traveling miles and miles on foot, dangerous territory, just to get to school. The education that those kids get is better than the education that a lot of our children get. And the reason being is because they're in a third world country. You've got volunteers that are going to go over to that third world country to teach those underprivileged kids and give them an education that they would no longer, or they would otherwise not have access to. Now, you come back to the States, and we have loads of underprivileged kids in communities that don't get the same attention. You get the shit end of the stick when it comes to teachers, to facilities, to financial aid, to programs, and where does that leave our kids, our underprivileged kids here stateside? They would be better off being sent over to a third world country to attend school, because they'd be more likely to get a better education and have more opportunities over there than they do here. That's my point of view.
What grade your son in, Chris?
He's going into the 3rd grade.
What else you?
5th grade this year.
5th grade? Ooh, yeah, my dad's going to the 1st grade. So I have a lot of issues with the education system being, I guess, not well-rounded. I mean, what is the U.S.? What are we? Anybody know the number in the world?
17.
In the world? 17.
I think it's 17th in the world.
Is that in math or science or what? How's it go?
I think that was overall when I was reading it. Basically.
So what do we mean by well-rounded?
Well-rounded as in everything, not just because there's some schools in general that are like more focused on the arts. There's some
I believe
schools.
this was Joe's. I believe this was Joe's response.
Sorry, I was looking down, and then I just responded. Go ahead, Joe.
I mean well-rounded.
Fuck you, Chris.
I mean well-rounded in the fact of I guess the subjects that are taught. I mean, there's so much emphasis on one particular subject versus all of them, and I don't think our kids are getting well-rounded education in overall. I mean, there's standardized testing, which a lot of countries do have. You got Korea, Japan, all the Asian, Germany, stuff like that. But I think they have more well-rounded curriculum versus ours.
So yeah, I actually absolutely agree with that. And to expand on that point, I feel like the reason why it's not well-rounded is because they did away with anything that they couldn't quantify. The arts, period, music, is something that can't really be communicated in terms of numbers on a spreadsheet. So those go out the window first. Everything else can be tested for. Everything else can be dwindled down to a series of steps of a process to be followed to achieve a desired result. And that takes zero imagination. And this is why your point upsets me. The lack of imagination Joe's.
Point, yeah.
Oh.
Not that I'm not countering the point. What I'm saying is that your point of the curriculum not being well-rounded is absolutely like the bane of it's the source of my distaste for the current education system. We're given the state of Washington is given almost $8 billion a year, and we're still not testing somehow in that upper extremity. Across the nation, I think it's like 70 some odd billion dollars is dedicated to education, and that's a huge number. And you would think that would correlate to, in American terms, money should equal results, and they're not. And the reason being is that they have our kids system where they're just learning how to follow directions. They're learning how to go through this sequence of steps in this process to achieve a desired result. And the consequence of that are people that have no conceptual imagination, people that can't picture the inner workings of something happening unless they're given an illustration. They lack the imagination to problem solve, because they've even standardized troubleshooting techniques now. It always, if X, then refer to Y. That's not teaching kids how to be smart. That's not teaching kids how to be intelligent. That's teaching kids how to follow directions and be productive workers. And so yeah, you also eliminate emotional receptibility. A big part of the artistic process, being an amateur artist myself, is the critique process, but it's also in the being honest with yourself and understanding what you're experiencing and how it makes you feel. Emotional intelligence is something that results from being somebody that participates in the arts. I'm sure you guys have friends that are artists or are musicians. They're typically pretty soulful people. And there's a reason for that. Their emotional receptibility contributes to their genius. And these are things that we're not teaching in school anymore, again, because you can't quantify these things. You can't put them on a spreadsheet. And because those numbers equal funding.
I'm going to counter that. I actually disagree with you on that, because I think the U.S. actually gets that right versus other countries. So they teach a standardized curriculum, but it's all about memorization. They memorize these facts. They have to memorize these passages, and that's how they pass the test. Versus the U.S., where we focus on critical thinking and problem solving, not just going by the book. Well, we do more than other countries.
But we don't.
We do way more than other countries. Versus Japan or China, we do way more. So I think we're at least headed in the right direction with that. But as far as other countries, I think we take the cake on that. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Also, have y'all heard about Finland? And I guess they're number one education. What do y'all talk about?
Finland, you know what? I was looking into their education program a little bit, and there's some things that are like weird, but overall, I think Finland's got it down like really well.
What is the day-to-day life of these students that are somehow excelling at this standardized testing? And is the standardized testing that these kids are experiencing at the same par in terms of difficulty of ours? Because it feels like, again, our students don't get these things conceptually. They know how to follow directions, and they know they're being taught how to take tests, not understand things so much as a whole. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever had to, I'm sure you have, tried to help your kids with some of the Common Core math principles that they try and shove down their throats, and it is the most backwards thing. But that's part of the point, is that Common Core, though, is a huge part of the standardized testing that gets the funding. Okay, now I don't know exactly the day-to-day, but this of these countries have these great students, but there's not a whole lot more that our students can do because of what their day-to-day consists of, and it consists of practice testing. And this is
what Japan is about.
Issue.
Japan, they do practice testing too. Japan, they have the whole thing where they have you go to school from kindergarten all the way to all the way through middle school, and then you have to actually test to get into high school. And from there, once you go into high school, and that those are private, I guess, private high schools. And then from there, once you graduate high school, you have to test to get into college. So they're like completely standardized test based. You have to they have like after school schools
Okay,
where
but
they
you
actually have more cramming.
Okay, but okay. My understanding of what you just described, though, was that they have a standard that's set for them, and so they're going to have to test out of high school. They're going to have to test into college. Okay. Now, how they reach that expectation, is that set out for them in incremental steps that they have to continue to test along the way, and if you miss one, if you end up backtracked in some fashion, that then throws off the progress of all the others? Because this is the issue that I'm talking about, as far as everything's a test, and then the tests have tests, and they have pre-tests, and it's not like, okay, you're going to test out of this, so now you have to learn now, and this is what, again, aids to my point, and I'm not trying to say that I'm right, but what I'm saying is, when you have this standard set for you, as an individual, you have to get creative to figure out how to meet that standard. You might not understand math the same way EQ understands math, or how to get to the desired result. Okay? But when that expectation is set, you both can take separate paths to achieve that same result that suits you. Standardized testing in America eliminates that entirely, because unless you're following those steps, they don't care if you got the right answer. They want to know that you know how to follow their directions, which is completely different than understanding what the curriculum is trying to teach you.
Like I haven't seen a lot of support for Common Core. A lot of it's been bad because this is utterly ridiculous. But the support that I've seen for Common Core is basically because people believe the same thing that you just said. Like, hey, standardized testing eliminates my child's ability to take their own path to get to the same answer, to the same result. And Common Core, this is teaching them that there is a different way to come to the same answer. Here's the simple way, and then here's a different way that might be a little bit more complicated to some, but it might be easy to you, right? Now, with that, I'm like, well, that makes total sense, right? Like that's a good thing. I want my daughter to know that there's different ways to get to an answer, and to understand that not just because there's different ways to get to an answer doesn't mean they're the right ways or the easiest way. Because generally you want them to grow up and learn, like, hey, you don't want them to go through as many hardships when it comes to regular things. So you want them to understand that there is an easier way to do something. Hey, you learned this complicated ass way to do math. Guess what? If you just add them together like this, 1 + 1 = 2, you're going to get the same answer, and it's much easier, right?
Exactly, right? And it makes sense, and you're able to occupy other thoughts. Now, let me go ahead and talk about other unforeseen consequences of this that aren't discussed. Because when you standardize testing and you standardize the way things are taught, you're standardizing teachers.
Yes.
Okay? You're not allowing them the ability to come up with their own approaches and figuring out ways to motivate different kinds of students. Okay, you're taking all of because a classroom is an entity as a whole. Whether it's 5 or 30 kids, there's a certain pace that is set by students in the class that set the bar that allows for other kids to either look up to, or there's things that the standardized testing eliminates in terms of how creatively things are taught. The reason why that matters is because you can save money if you standardize teachers. If teachers are also reduced to a role where all they're doing is following steps out of a manual that week 1 has a curriculum, you teach week 1's curriculum, you move to week 2, you follow that curriculum, you don't have to pay people a whole lot of money to do that. You don't, at best.
You don't even need to have somebody...
You can reduce the...
Sorry.
I'm saying you can entirely reduce the credentials are necessary to become a teacher. Now, I'm sorry, I'm kind of ambushing you guys with this, but this is right in my wheelhouse because I've already taken and passed both exams required to become a teacher in the state of Washington. So anyway, my point is that it reduces the need for educated teachers. It reduces the need for people that have fully developed minds and opinions and fully realized human beings that are going to be in the classroom shaping the minds of our kids that we want to become fully realized human beings. everything is reduced to a standard, everything is reduced to a manual, everything is reduced to a series of how-to steps, then we are all going to be in some serious, serious trouble. Because again, being able to regurgitate things in the textbook does not communicate intelligence.
But you can do that. You can still have standardized testing without having the teachers be subject to some restrictions. I mean, other countries have higher standards for teachers. They have to have a master's degree to become a teacher. And I think that is wonderful. We don't hold that same standard.
But why would you, though? Why would you? In a country where a person with a master's degree makes far more money than a person with a 2-year college degree, why would you want the teachers to have master's degrees when you can pay them tens of thousands of dollars less to do the same work? Because you've made it thing.
But hold on. We're talking about other countries where they actually pay their teachers.
Yeah, this country, it's
right.
Yeah, exactly. They have master's degrees and they sit there and they say for instance, you walk into a classroom, right? You walk into a classroom, your teacher is straight out of damn some 2-year, fucking 4-year college, and they don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? What the hell are you talking about? You know that as a student, as a little kid, you're like, whatever. But you have someone who knows what they're talking about, you can take them seriously because they have a whole different air about them. That's my opinion. And
that's exactly it, though. And we're talking. But we're absolutely talking cause and effect, because this is completely is a trickle down system. Because here's another unforeseen consequence. Okay, now we have schools that compete for students with better scores. Okay, we have schools closing down because parents either want them to go to the school with better funding, or they put their kids in private school. So the kids that don't test well all end up in the same school that isn't getting the funding, so they're not getting the nurturing that their minds need, and eventually these schools end up closing down. So now we're left with fewer schools. Now we're left with crowded schools, and they're all still competing for the same funds.
I don't think there's been a Tuesday we haven't had technical difficulties. It's just because it's so fucking hot, man. Anyways, okay, so to wrap this up, whether you're a parent or not a parent, if you're pursuing education or you decided not to pursue education, what are your thoughts on the United States take on education? Definitely a shout out to Jesse. Congratulations, girl, going Purdue, doing it big. Anyways, I'm EQ. This is Fridays on the Couch. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week.